All right, we're going to do one last one before we break for lunch and set up for Dr. Lyle's lunchtime talk, and that is Erika. Do you want to hold it or do you want to put it in here? Okay. Let's turn it back on if you would. Give me a sec to set up for you. Just hold it close to your mouth.
Is that good right there?
Yeah, that's probably fine.
Okay.
All right. And it should be more. Yeah, you can use the arrows if you want. Yep. All right, take it away.
Good morning or good afternoon, either way. My name is Erika Whitney Young. I'm studying arts production and management here at the University of Baltimore, and I am a senior. And outside of my time as a student, I am a photographer, writer, arts educator, and a legislative advocate. So this presentation, The Poetry of Unnoticed Things, Photojournalism as Activism, is about a project that I'm currently working on with the Public Justice Center. If you're not aware of the Public Justice Center, they are a local nonprofit that works with civil legal aid for citizens that are low income. So and we're doing this project called a Photo Voice Project. And the goal of this is to influence legislative rules and regulations, bills, change public perception, and also empower marginalized people. So what is a Photo Voice? A Photo Voice Project is essentially, we're putting cameras in the hands of those with lived experience so they could document their everyday lives. And this particular project is of great importance to me because it kind of combines all of my loves, art and advocacy. So the power of giving marginalized people a voice, a sense of autonomy, and the ability to control the narratives that are being sometimes utilized against them and creates a barrier to their own success. So how does the Photo Voice Project work? There are a few steps. First, let me get back to one of the purposes of a Photo Voice Project. In addition to creating a space for those with marginalized experiences, there also is to empower them to also
be
be
on that.
hands-on in creating change in those problems, being a part of the solution.
We should have had a little
So
more
it's
sandwiches,
a few
but
steps
not a
to a
lot.
Photo Voice Project.
Okay.
One,
I think we were guessing.
answer the questions with a camera. Essentially, is learning ethical photography practices and storytelling. Two, we communicate with the group. So our participants are working on narratives, they're writing from their own voice, and we're sharing that amongst the group. And with that sharing, we find common observations. And through common observations, that's how we find solutions, through more commonalities and looking at our differences. And the final step, which you can't see, is really sharing out. And that could be through art exhibits, that could be digital magazines. Probably the best example of Photo Voice Project you've seen is if you look at the annual review of a nonprofit organization. They have different photos, they have different storytelling in order to support the goal of whatever that organization is. So our particular focus on this project is with TANF and TCA. What is TANF? What is TCA? TANF is a federally run program. It's an acronym for Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. It is a federal program that allows for monthly monetary cash allotments for families who are in need for any reason. That could be homelessness, underemployment, unemployment, medical emergencies. It is a federal program, but it is run on a state level. So each state has the ability to essentially run the program as they please. And here in Maryland, the TANF is TCA, which is Temporary Cash Assistance. So in addition to cash allotments, it also allows for child care vouchers, training, sometimes education allotments, which is a particular thing for me that I'm always pushing for. But with this, the ultimate goal of changing the policies Because the way the policy is now, the rules and regulations are really all entirely too rigid. And in being rigid, it has a racist background and has the actual adverse reaction of creating more barriers for financial independence. And with that, it also creates a cycle of poverty as people cycle on and off of the program, which is really the goal is independence, which is hard to reach with the way the system is set up. And there's also the barrier of stigma. There's the idea that people that this is essentially welfare. That's what people would know it is. The idea of the welfare queen, the idea of people being lazy, uneducated, and not wanting to work is a huge problem. And this is affects me personally because I am a former TCA recipient. So in the ideas of the stigma that's created, I'm an anomaly. Just the fact that I'm in school, seeking education, and moving forward is something that is possible for all participants. So this program that we did, we have some participants, all from Baltimore City, from various backgrounds. So we gave them cameras and say, hey, just document your life. It doesn't have to be specifically about receiving cash assistance or being denied or being put off of the program. So this is an example of a photo from one of our participants. It's kind of hard to see this photograph at the bottom. It's really one I want to focus on. She waited in line for hours for this community Christmas event, which is hard time of year for those who are experiencing financial trauma. With the guarantee that everyone will receive a gift. This young girl, it's kind of hard to see. But you can see right here, amongst the celebration, there's a little girl crying because she didn't get the gift that she was guaranteed, even though her family did receive a microwave. But this just shows one of the burdens of poverty. We have another example from another participant, and I want to read this. She says, before bedtime, me and my kids have tea time. We just talk about whatever. I appreciate these moments above most of all. These moments don't cost a thing, but they are priceless. We may not have much, but most importantly, we have each other. So back to one of the ultimate goals is to empower the people who are experiencing these things. And this is exactly how I came into legislative advocacy. I was homeless in a domestic violence shelter with 2 young children, and I was asked to share my story. And from that, it went to legislative advocacy to the point now where I'm actually on team with different attorneys drafting bills. So I've successfully advocated in support of 5 different bills. Thank you. And this is just a few points from a few of our participants. Like I said, this is an ongoing project, so I couldn't share all the images with you guys, but just a few points. One of the things that's most important, like I said, was empowering those who are experiencing this. So we've had 5 of our participants actually spoke this year in support of House Bill 1490, which was, thank you, which was in support of those having an exemption for child support for those wanting to receive cash assistance. So they got to see firsthand how bills become laws and how their story impacted legislative advocacy in order to create change. And that is the ultimate goal. And thank you.
All right, questions for our last speaker before we stop and have lunch. All right. What am I, Matthew McConaughey?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say this is awesome. Awesome work. Very inspiring, very moving. I am like sitting here like, oh my gosh, because you never stop to think about like, you take your own life for granted. Like you take your life for granted, like, oh, we're just supposed to have certain things. But to see like people standing in line for 2 hours only to, be a kid be let down. You never stop to think about how just life is impacting people outside of your own world. So thank you for sharing this. This was very inspirational.
Thank you.
All right, we got one in the back and then one on the side.
Yeah, echoing that. Thanks for doing this. Can you talk a little bit about the lobbying and advocacy process, like challenges you face, who stood in your way, what's lurking behind the shadows?
Oh, that's a long question.
Go for a brief answer.
Exactly. All the bills that I've legislated for, which is it's been actually 5 that have successfully become bills. We have had some that had some pushback, mostly from DHS, which is the Department of Human Services, DSS. A couple elected officials, especially in regards to things that financially affect the different agencies. So we've had a lot of pushback. Oftentimes, it looks like a lack of empathy, which is a reason why you do a photo voice project. So you look beyond just the facts and figures on a piece of paper and look at the stories behind those numbers.
No, I just want to say good presentation. I think I can relate to some of the things that you mentioned, and I think you're doing a good job with what you're doing, the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I have one last question, which is that was fascinating and really interesting. And I, as the MC, I love the diversity of all of this. I'm just curious, were there, I'd be interested to know if there are people who were like resistant to participating or who refused you. Because like I could imagine some people thinking like, oh, I don't want anyone to see me
Yeah.
in this
The
phase of my life,
the
you know?
recruiting process is pretty hands-on. I created a flyer and I went to the streets. At the time, I lived in Sandtown, which I just moved from. So Sandtown is right next to Penn North. There's the Department of Social Services right there. There's a large hub for transportation, so it's a lot of people. So I actually good old-fashioned taping flyers in different
All right.
places, and the people were interested. We did have a certain criteria, and we were able to narrow it down to 5 participants this time.
Okay. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
One last round of applause for everyone who spoke this morning. Yeah, you go from that. Right. So we're gonna pause the recording now, and there's some salad, and there's enough little sliders for everybody to have a little slider, and then there's like some fruit cups and some cookies and stuff. So eat it.